Yo, what's good? It's your man, 100 Grand Russ with The Rock Never Stops. Today, I wanted to continue with my series, The Blueprint for Success, for the 2022-2023 NBA season. Today's team is going to be the Brooklyn Nets. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button for me, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. The reason why I wanted to do this is because there was an interesting argument that was posed on the Pick a Side podcast. I follow them, bunch of cool cats. Definitely go and check them out. YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff, right? But they were talking about who had the better roster, right, between the Boston Celtics and Brooklyn Nets, and they go back and forth and back and forth. They start debating if Brooklyn is a real contender, and I started really thinking, it's like, you know what, people emphasize certain things when it reinforces their argument, but sometimes they fail to acknowledge some of the simple things that you can acknowledge up front. You know what I mean? And something that I learned when I was coaching, I coached at a local college, and I remember the head coach, he said, you know what, winning is about if you have the horses or not. And what he was referring to is if you have the talent or not. And they kind of undervalue talent in their argument going back and forth. They're like, yeah, it doesn't take in mind your coaching, continuity, health, all these different things. It's like, you're right. You're totally right. But if you ain't got the talent, you don't have a chance. And you have to realize the Brooklyn Nets, when they lost to the Boston Celtics, and granted, barely, each game, it was a close game. I mean, it was no blowout by any means, which means that what separated them was probably a lot of those nuances of, like they mentioned, coaching, continuity, right? Guys trusting each other, gelling, knowing where each other's going to be. I get that Brooklyn didn't have that. But what you got to also look at is who's coming back. One, Joe Harris, right? That sniper, reliable 3-and-D perimeter defender who is going to force you to make sure a defender stays with him at all costs. Right? He was in a three-point shooting contest only a few years back. You can't leave him open. Secondly, you also got Ben Simmons coming back. And this is probably the first point when it comes to the blueprint for success for next season. It's integrating your new guys. It's integrating the guys who are out last season with the guys who came in last year via trade. Right? Seth Curry, who came in, right? TJ Warren, right? You got guys like the rookies who are there, Kessler Edwards, right? You got what's his name? Cam Thomas, Day'Ron Sharp, David Duke Jr., right? You got the rookies. Then you got the veteran guys like Ben Simmons, right? You didn't get a chance to play with them. You got Royce O'Neal coming in via trade or cap space signing, right? Like, you got a lot of new pieces. Steve Nash is going to have to do a hell of a job, and I mean a hell of a job, to put all those pieces together. Because when you put all those pieces together, when it comes down to talent, and you can go across the board, Brooklyn Nets, they measure up against anybody. Against anybody. Take Boston. Who's their best player? They would say Jason Tatum. Who's the Brooklyn Nets' best player? Kevin Durant. Who's better? Kevin Durant. Don't even argue about that. Second best player, Jaylen Brown. Second best player, Kyrie Irving. Depending upon which version of Ben Simmons we get, right? If we get all NBA Defensive Player of the Year level Ben Simmons All-Star, right? It might be Ben Simmons, right? But let's say because that's a question mark. Okay, we say Kyrie, Jaylen Brown. All right, let's call it even there. Let's call it even, right? Maybe you want to give Jaylen a little bit extra because of his defense. Okay, cool, whatever. But then you go to the next best player for Boston. Who is it? Is it Marcus Smart? Is it Marcus Smart? Well, if it is, don't compare Ben Simmons to Marcus Smart. Ben Simmons dwarfs him, right? Who's the next best player? Keep going. Right? Brooklyn has got talent that can match up with anybody in the NBA. And so putting those pieces together is going to be Steve Nash's primary focus for this coming season. How does he help all of them mesh together? The second component for their blueprint for a successful season is going to be health. Right? It's going to be flat out. When Kevin Durant was healthy, they were the number one seed in the East. And this was with a half-hearted James Harden and no Kyrie and a bunch of young guys, right? And a bunch of really old guys with Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge, right? They were really old or really young, and they were still the number one seed because of his greatness. Now you bring back Ben Simmons, first team all defense, one of the best facilitators in the NBA, can guard all five positions, plus a healthy Kyrie Irving, a healthy Joe Harris. You're going to have a healthy Seth Curry. You still got Cam Thomas. You still got guys like Royce O'Neal off the bench. Nicholas Claxton's going to be older and stronger. Day'Ron Sharpe might be ready to start sliding into some real center minutes. And he looked good in the minutes that he was in there last season, right? TJ Warren, we all know if he's healthy, he's a walking bucket, right? When all these pieces are healthy and able to play, you give a full roster at Steve Nash's disposal. I think you're going to see that he has probably a little bit more coaching chops than what he was given credit for, right? He had a rough season. We're all going to give him that. And he slipped in a lot of areas. But you know what covers a lot of slips? Talent. Eric Spoelstra said it his rookie season coaching LeBron James in Miami. And he said, you know what? I know it's my first year because there was a lot of, beef about if LeBron was going to accept him. Pat Riley had Eric Spoelstra's back, right? And Eric Spoelstra was like, you know what? That man over there talking to LeBron James, like that man, he covers a whole lot of mistakes. Because what I fail to draw up, what I fail to see, he sees. What I fail to figure out, he figures out. And his talent is able to still allow us to succeed no matter how much I'm still figuring this out. Every coach has to figure it out. Every coach has to learn, which is why I'm kind of against firing coaches because they have a bad year or two. Once they show they have some basic abilities, you got to let them learn. And I think Steve Nash, with a healthy roster, is going to show that he's learned from last season and he's got more to contribute to this team when he actually has a full roster at his disposal. I would say the last aspect for a blueprint for success for the Brooklyn Nets is going to be that the young guys take a step forward. I mentioned a little bit earlier, Day'Ron Sharpe. Day'Ron Sharpe is about a 6'10", 6'11", 250-pound, extremely agile, mobile center. Really soft hands, great touch around the rim, good verticality, knows how to be in the right place at the right time. He played in North Carolina, right? They really teach their big men how to be in the right place, understanding how to move, spacing, boxing out. They do so many of the little things that get overlooked at a high level is why a lot of North Carolina big men last in the NBA. They last in the NBA. And Day'Ron Sharpe, I think he's going to be one of those guys as well, right? Filling in on this team, he's going to be able to eat a lot off of everyone else having a lot of attention on them. But they're going to need him to take a step forward because if I'm honest with you, I think I would rather have a Day'Ron Sharpe playing at his best than a Nicholas Claxton. Nicholas Claxton is just too light in the bottom. He doesn't rebound well enough. He challenges at the rim. He's good in transition, but he hasn't extended that range to really justify a lot of minutes. And I think Day'Ron Sharpe has more long-term potential and bonuses for this roster than a Nicholas Claxton. The next guy is Cam Thomas. I know he's a walking bucket, but I need him to be able to fully take Patty Mills' spot. I need him to fully say, you know what, I'm ready to get buckets. And you know what, me partnered with Seth Curry is going to be a better option, right? He's going to have to get his efficiency up, and he's also going to have to start playing some high-level defense. And that brings us to the last young guy. Well, I mean, there's David Duke also. He's a little bit further down the depth chart, even though I think he has some more versatility at the guard position, being able to play both guard positions really well. But I would say the guy I really want to highlight here is Kessler Edwards. At 6'7", 6'8", great athleticism, over a 7-foot wingspan, has really high 3-and-D level potential, right? I think he could be a Mikal Bridges type of 3-and-D player because when you looked at how he did in college, he was far more versatile. He had a whole lot more to his game. But of course, when you're the captain of your team, when you're that incumbent star on your team, you play with a different level of confidence. Now the question is, can they build his confidence and put him in positions to find success so that this season he takes that next step forward and he begins to be able to contribute because they need that type of length on the perimeter. They need that type of guy with his size and length to be able to guard guys like the Jason Tatums and the Jaylen Browns, right? And the Chris Middletons and the Jimmy Buckets. They need somebody who's physical, long, athletic, and has the size to match up with them, with their athleticism, with their skill level, with their ability to attack the rim and hold your own. And so if those young guys can take that next step forward, I think the Brooklyn Nets are going to be really, really good. Because a healthy squad with everyone filling into their place, filling into their role, playing together. And let's keep in mind, they have every incentive to do so. Kyrie Irving is in a contract year. He's going to do everything he can to stay healthy and to play his best basketball. Why? Because he's trying to get paid. He's trying to reestablish his value around the league after last season. He knows it took a hit. He saw that it took a hit, right? Nobody wanted him in a trade. How do you reestablish that value? You ball the fuck out. You ball out. Seth Curry as well. Didn't end the season very well. They had an ankle injury, right? But he's also in a contract year. TJ Warren, he's in a contract year after sitting out all last year with an injury, right? These are guys who are trying to prove themselves. You got guys like Kessler Edwards and the young guys, right? They're trying to prove that they have a valid case for being in this league, especially for like Kessler Edwards, who was a second round pick, right? Who doesn't necessarily have those guaranteed years, right? Those are team options on them going into the following year, right? So they have to prove themselves. And when you have guys who have to prove themselves, who feel that internal pressure to play at a high level, it feeds into the buy-in that you're hoping for. So I fully anticipate this squad to come into training camp ready to go. I fully anticipate everybody who shows up having a chip on their shoulder, looking to reestablish who they are. People forgot about Joe Harris because he was out injured all last year. People forgot about most guys on this team because of the way that they went out in the playoffs. And that I guarantee you is a stench all of them can't wait to air out of that locker room. They can't wait to see Boston again. They can't wait to take it to the league and say, yo, don't forget about who we are. Don't think that experience in the playoffs defines us. And so I want to know what you all think. What do you think the blueprint for success for the Brooklyn Nets are for next season? Do you think it's about the health? Do you think it's about bringing all these guys together and the young guys are showing up? If you got other ideas, put it down in the comments. I can't wait to respond to them. If you like the video, hit like button, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications, and I'm out. Peace.